There's a well in Japan. It's small, unassuming, covered with a wooden lid. It sits in the courtyard of one of Japan's oldest castles, and for centuries, people have claimed to hear something coming from it. At night, when the tourists have gone home, when the castle grounds are empty, when the only sound should be wind through the stone corridors, they hear a voice, a woman's voice, counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then, a scream. Tonight, we're not exploring an internet legend. We're not diving into a creepypasta. We're not talking about something that spread through school corridors in the 1980s. Tonight, we're going back to the 1600s, to a real castle, a real well, and a real woman. A woman who was murdered, whose murderer was never punished, whose body was thrown into a well like she meant nothing, and who, according to the centuries of testimony, never left. This is the story of Okiku, and by the time we're done, you're going to understand why in Japan her name is still spoken carefully, why her well is treated with reverence, why actors performing her story will still visit her shrine before rehearsals, out of fear. Let's begin. Himeji, a city in the Hyogo prefecture of Japan, about 50 miles west of Osaka, is famous for one thing above all else: Himeji Castle. Construction began in 1333. It took centuries to complete. It survived World War II bombings largely intact, while almost everything around it was destroyed. Some say that was luck. Others say something was protecting it. Today, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Thousands of tourists visit every year. They photograph the white walls, the layered rooftops, the elegant, almost impossible architecture that seems to float above the city below. Most of them walk straight past the well. It's easy to miss. Small, covered, unremarkable. There's a sign beside it, explaining what it is, what happened here. Most tourists read it, take a photo, and move on. But some people stop and listen, because even in broad daylight, there's something about this well, something that makes you feel watched. Something that makes the air around it feel colder than it should. Like something is still down there, waiting. To understand why, we need to go back 300 years to when this castle was alive and a girl named Okiku was still breathing. She was a servant girl, working within the walls of the castle. History doesn't give us much about her life before the events that ended it. We don't know where she came from. We don't know her age with certainty. We don't know what she looked like. What we do know is that she was beautiful, and that beauty was her undoing. Her master was a samurai, a man of considerable power within the castle, and at some point, he noticed Okiku. In some versions of the story, he'd wanted her for years. In others, his obsession grew slowly, quietly, the way most dangerous things always do. He wanted to make her his, and he made this known to her. Okiku refused. Now, in feudal Japan, a servant refusing their master was not a small thing. It was dangerous. It required courage that most people in her position simply didn't have. But Okiku refused. Again and again. His desire curdled into something else. Something uglier. The way it always does when powerful men are told no. He needed a way to destroy her. To punish her. To make her comply or make her disappear. And so he hatched a plan. The household was in possession of 10 Delft plates. Dutch, rare, extraordinarily valuable. They were considered among the most prized possessions of the estate, and Okiku was responsible for their care. Every day she would count them, check for damage, make sure all 10 were accounted for. It was routine. It was her duty. And the samurai knew this. One day, when Okiku wasn't watching, he took one of the plates and hid it. Then he waited. He didn't have to wait long. Okiku went to check the plates, and she did every day. She counted them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. She counted again, slower this time, and again. Her hands shaking now, her breath shortening, because she knew what a missing plate meant. She knew the punishment. The samurai came to her, already knowing, watching her panic, watching her search desperately for a plate she would never find. And he offered her a choice. Become his, and he would forgive the missing plate, or refuse and face the consequences. Okiku refused. What happened next varies depending on who tells the story. In some versions, he beat her, slowly, deliberately, the way someone acts when they want you to suffer rather than simply die. In others, there was torture. Methods that we don't need to detail here. But all versions of the story agree on how it ended. Okiku was brought to the well, and she was thrown in. Some say she was already dead when she went in. Others say she wasn't. Others say she was bound, conscious, and thrown into the cold, dark water below. Either way, she was gone, and the samurai was untouched. No punishment, no consequence, no justice. In feudal Japan, a master killing a servant was not the same as murder. Not in the eyes of the law, not in the eyes of society. She was a servant. He was a samurai. And so the well was covered. The plates were replaced, and life at the castle continued, as if Okiku had never existed. But here's the thing about women who die like that, full of rage, full of pain, full of injustice that was never answered. In Japanese belief, they don't simply disappear. They become vengeful spirits, bound to the place they died, bound to the emotions that defined their final moments. Anger, betrayal, the desperate, futile need to fix something that can never be fixed. And so Okiku stayed. The first reports came quickly. Servants at the castle began to hear something at night, coming from the well. A voice, a woman's voice, counting. 9. Always 9. Never 10. Because the 10th plate was a lie. The 10th plate was a trap. The 10th plate was the reason she was dead. She would count forever, searching for a number she would never reach. Some accounts describe the counting as quiet at first, almost like a whisper, like someone muttering to themselves in a room nearby. But as the night deepened, it would grow louder, more desperate, each number heavier than the last, each count carrying the weight of everything she'd lost. And then, when she reached 9, the scream. Witnesses described it as unlike anything human. A sound so full of anguish and fury that it would wake everyone in the castle, that it could be heard outside the walls. Some accounts say that hearing the scream at full force could kill a person, drive them insane, leave them mute with terror for days. Others say that if you listened to her count all the way through in one night, you would be dead before morning. The legend spread beyond castle walls. Throughout Himeji, throughout the surrounding region, merchants and travellers passing near the castle at night reported hearing the counting. Some refused to take certain roads after dark. Mothers told their children to cover their ears if they heard a woman counting near water. For generations, Okiku counted, and screamed, and counted again. There's something particular about the psychological horror of counting as a haunting. It's not random. It's not chaotic. It follows a pattern. You always know what's coming next. 2 follows 1, 3 follows 2, and 9 always follows 8. And when she reaches 9, you know what comes after. You can't stop it. You can't interrupt it. You can't look away. You just wait for that 9th number, for that silence, for that scream. It's torture because the anticipation is almost worse than the sound itself. In the late 1700s, roughly a century after Okiku's death, the haunting had become so severe, so widely documented, that something had to be done. A Buddhist priest was brought to the castle. He performed a ritual at the well. Prayers, offerings, an attempt to communicate with whatever remained of Okiku. And then, he did something simple. He waited for her to count. And when she reached 9, just before the scream, he called out, 10. According to the accounts of those present, the scream never came. There was silence, then a long, low exhale, like someone finally putting something down they'd been carrying for 100 years. And then nothing. The haunting stopped. Or at least, that's what the records say. Today, Himeji Castle is one of Japan's most visited landmarks. On busy days, thousands of people walk through those grounds. School trips, tour groups, photographers. Most of them still walk past the well, read the sign, take a photo, and move on. But not everyone. There are accounts, collected over years by locals and visitors alike, of people who lingered near the well after hours, who sat with it, who listened, and some of them claimed to have heard something. Not always the counting. Sometimes just a sound. Water moving below. Even on still days. Even when there's no wind. Sometimes a temperature drop. Sudden and unexplained. Standing next to the well even in summer. Feeling a cold that comes from somewhere deeper than weather. Some report a feeling of being watched. Of something aware of their presence. Whether any of this is Okiku, nobody can say. But there's another detail worth noting. In Japan, the story of Okiku is not just a ghost story. It's a theatrical institution. There's a play telling Okiku's story that has been performed continuously since the 1700s. Kabuki theatre, bunraku puppet theatre, modern stage productions, and actors performing the role of Okiku, to this day, visit her shrine before production begins. Not as a tradition, not as a publicity stunt, but out of genuine fear, because the stories of what happens to those productions that don't pay their respects are not stories anyone in Japanese theatre takes lightly. Accidents, injuries, unexplained technical failures, cast members falling sick. Whether this is coincidence, superstition, or something else entirely, the ritual continues. Every production, every time. Because when it comes to Okiku, nobody wants to find out what happens if you disrespect her. Here's what we know. A woman named Okiku worked at Himeji Castle in the 1600s. She was murdered by her samurai master, thrown into a well because she refused him, because she said no. And for over a century after her death, the castle was haunted by her counting. The well still exists. The castle still stands. And every year, thousands of people walk past that small, covered, unremarkable well, with no idea of what truly happened there. But here's what stays with me about Okiku's story. She wasn't a demon. She wasn't born a ghost. And she wasn't some ancient supernatural force. She was a girl who was killed for having integrity, for refusing a man who thought he owned her. And in death, she found the power she never had in life. The power to terrify. The power to be heard. The power to make an entire castle afraid to sleep. Her killer faced no consequences, but he died. The castle moved on, and his name means nothing now, while hers is still spoken, still feared, still respected. 300 years later, if you ever visit Himeji Castle and you find yourself standing beside that well, listen carefully, and if you hear counting, don't interrupt. Let her finish. And whatever you do, count to 10 for her.